home. I'm Dennis.
I'm Andrew.
We're the Crafty Lumberjacks. We're really excited for today's video because we've been sharpening our skills using watercolor pencils.
If you're a beginner, this video is for you because we're going to be talking about all things watercolor pencils, from what materials you'll need to our favorite tips, tricks, and techniques using watercolor pencils. We're even going to make a really simple frame so you can easily display all your watercolor pencil creations. Let's get started. Now, watercolor pencils are exactly what they sound like. They're color pencils that are water soluble, meaning you can activate the pigment with adding water.
Yes, they're really convenient, really easy to use, and portable. So they're great for beginners because it's much easier to control a pencil rather than a brush.
Yes. Now, when you're looking for your watercolor pencils, they can vary in price. The cheaper they are, the less bright of a pigment you're gonna get. The more expensive, the brighter color you're gonna get.
Yes,
now,
we've seen watercolor pencils for up to $200.
Oh, yeah.
We did not pay that much, but we found for a beginner, you don't need to pay that much.
No.
We found this for under $20 and it's been working great.
Yeah. Now here's what else you'll need. Let's talk watercolor paper. Do not use printer paper. You want to use actual watercolor paper because it's sturdy enough to handle the water. We're going to be using some cold pressed watercolor paper. That just means that there's some texture. Of course, texture can really vary when you're looking for paper, so you kind of have to figure out what works best for you. This has some minimal texture, which we're kind of digging.
Yes, now let's talk paintbrushes. You're going to want to use a synthetic brush, but really the brush you use is going to depend on the type of project that you're making. Today we're going to be using a flat brush and a round brush. You just want to make sure that it's firm but soft enough that you'll be able to push around the pigment.
Yes, firm and soft, just like you, huh?
Wow.
Okay, we also need some painter's tape and some washi tape. This is just going to help us block out what we're painting today.
Yes, and of course you'll need some fresh water.
Okay, now let's start with our techniques.
Yes.
What we love about watercolor pencils is that you can do so many different techniques with just one pencil. Today we're going to be talking about 6 different techniques, and we're going to map it out and teach every technique, but also make it really visually pleasing so we can also use it as a piece of art. So the first thing we're doing is just taking some painter's tape and mapping out a border. And when doing this, you just want to make sure that you're pressing down really well, just so none of that water seeps through and you have nice and crisp lines. And now we're going to be making 6 different rectangles, but we want them to be the same size, so we're just going to be using a little painter's tape as a guide and then making a little bar with some washi tape.
I'm here too.
You're being so quiet.
I'm concentrating.
And we just used the washi tape because we wanted just a little bit of a thinner line, but you could absolutely use the painter's tape throughout.
Yes, we're big fans on use what you got. We had this painter's tape, we had this washi tape. Why not put it to use? This is an Andrew method, trust me, it's not a Dennis method. Oh.
You always know the Andrew method
because it never makes sense. It makes sense
so
for a
rude.
Libra, but not for a Taurus.
A stubborn Taurus that can never be wrong.
Okay, I'm never wrong, honey. I'm never wrong. For our first technique, we're going to be doing a solid color. We're using a dry pencil with dry paper.
This is the most standard way to use watercolor pencils. Now, when you're adding your watercolor pencil to the paper, it's best to do light layers and just keep adding on if you want a brighter color. If you draw too hard on the paper, you're gonna indent the paper and you're not gonna get the best look.
And of course, the more you color in, the more vibrant it will be once we add water. But again, you want to work in layers here. You don't want to work, press too hard into the paper.
And when you're doing watercolor in general, it's all about the process, taking your time with it, really just having a moment to, immerse yourself in what you're doing. It's mindless. It's really a fun thing to do. Another tip, if you're going to be doing a lot of shading like we are, it does get easier when the pencil gets more dull. If you notice, when it's really sharp, you kind of get those sharp lines. So the more dull the pencil is, the easier it is to do these big blocks of shading. It's also really important to have a cat. You really need a cat to help you.
To supervise. All right, now it's time to add the water. For this, less water is more. You want to think about dipping your brush in and then kind of rinsing off some of the water there. You don't want to use too much water.
Yeah, the more water you use, the more pigments that's gonna get washed away. So just a teeny amount of water will really go far. And you can always add more water, it's just harder to take out the amount of water you add once it's there.
So you can dip and then brush off any excess water, and you'll see it will become more vibrant. So in the goal here, oh, Teddy. You know, we're just gonna push it around, trying to work in even strokes there so we get a nice even coating.
I think that looks pretty good. What do you think?
I like it.
All right, our last tip is you should really rinse out your water as you go, because as you can see, there's a little bit of green in there. So just rinse it out for the next color.
For our next technique, we're going to be using a dry pencil on a wet piece of paper. That's what's so great about the watercolor pencils, is that they're so versatile. You can use it so many different ways. And you can really kind of create whatever you want with different techniques, where watercolor paints are just kind of basic.
You just call watercolor paints basic?
I did.
Oh my
gosh.
Don't let them hear you.
So I'm just gonna, you know, wet my paper here, and then I'm gonna start to color. Yeah, and you can see this gives it a little more texture. It doesn't look as smooth as the other.
And again, you want to go in light layers instead of pressing really hard as you're drawing, because that will indent the paper and it also won't give you the best finished look. For our third technique, we're going to be doing a gradient effect using dry on dry, and I'm just going to start drawing heavily in one corner and then getting lighter, just like a gradient. And again, I'm not pushing down with the watercolor pencil, I just want to do it nice and light, and then I can go over it for a darker look. All right, so the tip for this is when you add your water to start in the lightest area first. For this gradient effect, if you add it to your darkest spot and carry it over, it's just going to look like a solid color. So I'm gonna start where I have actually no watercolor and then carry that water into the blue.
Sabotage, Teddy.
All right, for our fourth technique, we're gonna do a gradient, but with two different colors meeting in the middle. I'm gonna pick a yellow and an orange. And just like before, I'm gonna add more pigment to the sides and then go a little bit lighter as we meet in the middle. Now, as I get to my center, I am going to add a good amount of pigment just where the colors meet. And that's just gonna help the colors blend together.
Now, even though we're just practicing and showing you a few techniques, this would probably look really great if you were doing a flower portrait or flower pictures.
A sunset.
Yes, a sunset, that would look pretty. You know, you want to kind of take these techniques and incorporate them into artwork.
All right, and just like before, I'm gonna start from the lightest to the darkest. So I'm gonna start from the yellow and then move on to the orange. If I started from the orange, the whole thing would just end up looking orange. So not too much water. Okay, so I'm really not happy with the way this is looking, and sometimes stopping before it gets worse is best. So I really don't like how this line is here. So I just like let it dry fully, and now I'm going to draw over it and blend it a little more. I think what the issue was, I was using a little bit too much water and it just washed away that pigment. So I'm just gonna go over it again. And when the paper is nice and dry, you can color right over it. I'm gonna add a lot of yellow right to this area. Then I'm gonna do the same with the orange. Really trying not to use a lot of water. I'm already liking the look of this already. Now I am gonna start from the orange here just to carry over the orange a little bit more to the yellow. I'm really gonna work on this middle area just to blend it. Oh yeah. So far, all our techniques have involved drawing with our watercolor pencils.
Yes, but now we're going to use our pencils as paint.
All right, for this technique, I'm going to be using the watercolor pencils more traditionally. So we're actually going to use the paper as a palette. I'm going to just draw a little scribble. And again, the more layers you add, the brighter the pigment's going to be. And I'm just going to be using different shades of pinks and purples. And I'm basically using this part of the paper as a palette.
Yeah, that's why we love the watercolor pencils. They're so versatile. You can kind of do a whole bunch of different things and even kind of do basic watercoloring.
Yeah, and it's really great if you are trying to craft on the go and you don't want to carry a lot of materials. These are so versatile, you can really just use them traditionally. Now for this technique, I'm going to be using the round brush, but of course you could use the flat one, but I think the round one works really well. So just like traditional watercolors, I'm going to dip it right into the watercolor, and you can see that pigment is already activated.
And if you're gonna go crazy, you could even blend these colors together and make your own colors.
That's true. Let me try that.
Now, I don't know if it's because you didn't, press a lot, but this is definitely giving a lighter, not as vibrant as when you're using the pencils directly, but it still works. Again, more flowers, more sunsets.
Oh yeah, all the watercolor staples.
Yes. For our last technique, I'm gonna be doing something a little different. What's so cool about the watercolor pencils is that you can actually add water directly to the pencil to activate the pigment and then paint just like that. You wanna be sure to not get the water on the part of the pencil that is wood. You want to just get it on the pigment there.
Yeah, and if you do, you can always take a paper towel and just dry it off.
Yes, but we're going to be creating a fun splatter effect on our last technique here using our pencils and this technique. I'm going to wet my brush here, and then I'm just going to use it to flick on the bottom.
Yeah, so we're just using a piece of paper just so we don't get it on the rest of our rectangles
there. And I'm just going to splash it. Create a fun little splatter effect. I love this one. It helps add a lot of texture to your work there, and it's just fun.
Yeah, this one's a great one just to add some texture and detail, just like you were saying, and it's so easy.
And I'm gonna go for a double color here.
Again, when you're working on a piece of artwork, it really is about finding those different layers, those added details that really take it over the top. So using any of these techniques really will help to do that.
All right, now it's all dry. We're ready to reveal our work here. And again, actually, we're gonna turn our practice work into artwork.
Yes, we really love the color block look. It looks so beautiful as is. And it'll also help us reference the paint techniques as we go. I love how it looks. It looks so good.
Same. Oh my gosh, we love it so much. It looks so good. These are just some of the basic techniques that you can do with watercolor pencils, but there's so much more. But now we want to display our artwork, and we're actually gonna turn this wood slice into a frame that we can easily change out our artwork as we create more watercolored pieces.
It is so simple, let's just do it.
All right, so I have my sacrificial wood here, just so I don't drill into the table. We're just going to drill 4 holes in the corners here, and then add our elastic bands. And I'm gonna measure about 2 inches on each side. Looks pretty good. You can sand it if you have any splintering. And then we're just gonna thread through our elastic here and tie it off in the back just by adding a little knot. And you want it pretty tight because we do want the artwork to stay in there nice and snug. So I'm just gonna pull this through the back here.
I love this. It's so simple. It looks modern. It's really accessible. I think it's really cute. And we made it in what, like 10 minutes?
Less than.
Less than.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
It took us longer to find the drill.
This turned out so good. I can't believe our practicing made beautiful artwork.
I can't either. Let us know, have you ever tried watercolored pencils, or would you try it, or are you just gonna stick to typical watercolors? Let us know in a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.